All right, so this is going to be a review of After Earth from 2013, starring Jaden Smith and Will Smith, and directed by M. Night Shyamalan. Now, the reason why I decided to do this, this was from 2013, the reason why I decided to do this is because this year, 2024, uh, M. Night's really been into nepotism, right? He had that movie, The Watchers. I guess he produced it, but it was directed by um, another one of his kids, like one of his daughters. And then I didn't see that movie. It turned out, I guess it wasn't that great, but I did see Trap, which he directed. And while I was watching the movie, I was kind of confused. I was like, wait a minute, why are they focusing so much on this pop star and her music and all this other things? And like why are we doing weird things in the movie, like taking weird turns to keep her in the movie? Then I got home, looked it up, it's his daughter. Okay, I guess that makes sense. Such an obvious nepotism vehicle, trying to push her music and have her be important in the movie, as an actress, even though she's the worst, easily the worst actor in the whole movie. She's not good at all. So I was like, well, he's done a nepotism vehicle before. It just wasn't for his kid, one of his kids. It was for Will Smith's kid, Jaden Smith. So I was like, well, After Earth is on HBO Max. I've seen it before. I know it's bad. I was like, okay, I can do a bad movie review on that. This movie is definitely bad. It's underwritten. It's poorly written. It's contrived, convenient. Um, at the end of the day, it's very lazy in its setup and its world building and things like that. Because at the end of the day, it's about Jaden Smith running through the woods. Right? It's about Will Smith really trying to push this kid on us as a movie star, and he just wasn't there. It's not good. He's bad in this. So it starts off with Jaden Smith giving his voiceover narration, telling us all about what happened with Earth and things like that. Earth became uninhabitable, so the humans had to get off, Earth and go to another planet. And the main people heading that up, kind of leading things, were the United Ranger Corps. So they get to this other planet, Nova Prime, and the aliens that I guess were already on that planet, they end up sending these creatures called the Ursa to attack the humans and kill them off and all that. And they can't see. It's said that they're technically blind, whatever. They can't see, but they can see humans to attack them by their fear. So they see by some pheromone that you secrete when you're scared or something like that. There's some explanation. It was kind of nonsense. So Will Smith's character in this, Cypher Rage, he becomes kind of a hero of the Rangers because he learns how to do something called ghosting, which basically means you have no fear, and so they can't see you. And so he's able to use this cutlass spear thing to be able to take them out and save people's lives. So Jaden Smith's character, Katai Rage, who's Cypher Rage's son, is trying to follow in his footsteps. He's a cadet in the Ranger Corps, but he doesn't get promoted to being a Ranger because even though he's top of his class, he's the fastest in his class, all that, whenever they get into like a real world kind of like scenario, he gets too scared, right? He can't handle it. So he's not able to be promoted to Ranger. Goes home, his dad's coming back from some mission he was on. And so Cypher is like, tells the mom, his wife, he's like, I'm gonna retire and maybe work with you or something. I'm done with this, right? Because he's been so distant with his family. Because along with him being fearless, he seems pretty emotionless, right? And like the military is his whole life. He's having his, he's like giving his son like orders and things like that throughout the movie, and so he wants his family back. He'd already lost his daughter, Katai's older sister. We'll talk about that a little bit later. So after this one last thing, obviously things are going to go wrong. He's going to retire. And because him and Katai got into it earlier at the table, and he wants to, I guess, reconnect with him or try to, he's like, hey, I'm gonna take him with me. I'm gonna take my boy with me. And it's seeming like he's trying to put forth some effort by doing that, but he's still like barely talking to him when they get on the spaceship and everything.
I'm reading Moby Dick.
Your mother told me. That's great.
So a storm happens. The spaceship gets all messed up. They have to make an emergency landing on Earth, which is uninhabitable. And the spaceship just gets ripped up. Like the tail of it just gets ripped off and goes flying somewhere else. When they crash land, the ship is all kinds of messed up. and like just ripped up. It's pretty much destroyed, even though a lot of it still works because we need it for the plot. But because Katai was strapped in or whatever, he's for the most part fine. But Will Smith, Cypher, he goes flying and his legs actually get broken. So now Katai is the only one who can make the trip to go get the tail because they have a beacon to call for help, but it's broken. So they have to go to the tail to get the other one. And because they had an Ursa on the ship that they were going to use for training, the Ursa's probably over there at that tail. So he has to now not only deal with the dangers of Earth, but he has to also deal with the Ursa potentially when he gets to that tail. All right, so positives. Other than Jaden Smith, we'll definitely talk about him. I actually thought the performances were good. There's not many characters in here. It's mainly just about Will and Jaden. But Will, he's a good actor. And I think even though his character is unlikable, emotionless, and just really boring, because he's just sitting around just lecturing or giving advice or telling, what's it called, Katai, Jaden Smith what to do. I do I do think that he's good for what he has to do. Whenever he's starting to die, you really do feel that, and you are at least a little bit worried for the character, even though the character's not that great, because his performance elevates it. I actually like the father and son stuff in this, or some of it, right? Like there's this one point where they're about to leave in the beginning, and somebody that Cypher saved was like, "Hey, stand me up." He has no leg. He's like, "Hey, stand me up," and he wants to salute him, right, to show his appreciation for him saving him. And then at the end of the movie, right, when Katai saves Cypher, he's like, "Hey, stand me up," and he wants to salute his son, and Jane just goes up and he hugs him and they embrace each other. I thought that was good. I thought that was good setup and payoff, and that along with certain other moments, it's like, okay, I feel the father and son kind of relationship, at least somewhat of one, kind of being formed from them, talking to each other more, and Katai feeling like he needs to prove himself. He really wants to prove himself to his dad, and his dad really having to put faith in him. There's two things holding this movie back. Is that one, it's made by M. Night Shyamalan, right? And he was already on a losing streak, right? So you got the M. Night isms with like weird dialogue and bad direction of actors, things like that. But you also have, because this movie is just about kind of putting Jaden Smith out there as a new a potential movie star, and really trying to sell us on him. The rest of it just feels completely just thrown in there, just like not even thought out at all. Like humans leaving the Earth, right? Because we destroyed the planet and all that other stuff, right? And we go to Nova Prime and we get attacked. I don't know how much time goes by. They might have said, I don't know, but you didn't send any Rangers to do any recon on that planet to make sure there were no, threats there that might attack humans once they get there. You didn't do any research. And then also the aliens might as well not even be in this. They don't do anything with the aliens. I guess they're warring with the aliens, and the aliens are just using the Ursa that they created. But the aliens, they don't even touch on them, right? And it could have been easy. You could have just been like, hey, the aliens want to get rid of the humans because they destroyed their planet. And so they're like, hey, we don't want you here. We don't want you taking over our planet and like subjugating us potentially. And then also, we don't want you destroying our planet now. So you got to go, right? But they did nothing with the aliens. It could have been easy to have that motivation there to do something with the aliens. They might as well not even be in this movie. And then the whole thing with them creating the Ursa to be able to kill off the humans. Never mind, we have no motivation of that for that. But why would you create them to where they're blind? They're blind, but they can only see through fear, to where if a human doesn't feel fear, they're completely invisible to them. Or like, why would you design them like that? And now that humans have been able to ghost and they're more and more learning about it and things like that to be able to take them down, how are you still using these things? Have you moved on to something else? I don't know, because they don't really do anything with the aliens. So there's so much of this that's like, you didn't think this through. You couldn't have. The set design, it is so lazy. Like, oh, we're on another planet or whatever, not Earth or whatever. So we have this apartment or home, whatever, and it's all white. and it's just random stuff placed everywhere. Like Jaden Smith's Katai's room. It's just all white. He just has things on like a counter, and then he has like a hammock instead of a bed. I guess they don't use beds anymore for some reason. That's it. It's like, really, that's it. And there's such obvious sets. Like even when they're on the plane's been ripped up or whatever. Conveniently, the plane's been destroyed, other than the things that they need to use in order for the plot to keep going, in order for the plot to happen. Really, it's ripped up, and they're walking around it and things like that, and it feels like a set, right? It doesn't feel real to me. It just doesn't. The accents even, right? So the accents are so inconsistent that it feels like characters are just flubbing lines and we're just moving on. Like Will Smith has like this kind of southern accent for some reason with certain words. Like, oh, you'll have to ask my wife about that one. It's so awkward and forced. It's not doing Jaden Smith any favors pretty much from the beginning.
Sir, I am dedicated, have studied, and consistently display conduct becoming of a ranger, sir. I request that the commander reconsider his assessment, sir.
It gets so bad with this accent that there's a point where Cypher, he's on the ship and he's talking to Jade and he's giving him this whole lecture. I mean, he's really going off for a while. And there's a point where he says our, and he says it as our. And he does that most of the time. But then in the next sentence in that scene, he enunciates and says our. It's like, okay, if this is his accent, how come he has more of an accent when he says this same word in this sentence, and then the next sentence is like, oh, okay, no, he enunciated it. There wasn't much of an accent there. It's like, it's so inconsistent. It's so bad.
Fear is not real. The only place that fear can exist is in our thoughts of the future. It is a product of our imagination.
Poor Jaden, man, with the accents and with the other stuff, you guys are not doing this man any favors. The kid clearly was not ready for this. I mean, if you watch, some of these scenes where he's given certain lines of dialogue where it's just like, man, he is really struggling. It doesn't feel believable. He's not convincing to me that this is how he's really feeling, whether it be facial expressions, line delivery. It's just bad pretty much the whole way through, and you kind of feel bad for him.
And why were you? She called out for you, she called your name, and you weren't there because you never there. You're wrong. I'm not a coward. You're the coward.
It got kind of meta a little bit because, you have Will Smith playing the father here and Jaden Smith playing the son that's trying to follow in the father's footsteps but just isn't measuring up. And so there's points in this movie where I'm looking at Jaden and he just doesn't look like he wants to be there. And it's almost like he really doesn't want to be. Right? It really is just, it feels awkward, some of the interactions they have, because it almost feels like you're like eavesdropping on an actual argument that they're having, or you're eavesdropping on some kind of therapy session. When they get on Earth, there's still things where it's like, okay, this isn't quite making sense. Like there's trees everywhere, so you can't make it to where they can't breathe oxygen. So they have these things that they use to make the oxygen easier to breathe. And then there's that whole thing where it's like, well, it's more than just the Ursa, it's also the animals and things like that. They've all evolved to be able to kill humans. And it's like, why? Evolution is based on environment. Like, if we're not here and haven't been here for a long time, how are they evolving having anything to do with us? And it's like, just the most obvious hole in that way of thinking. And then really the things that attack him potentially could have attacked him even if the Earth hadn't, the alien animals on Earth hadn't evolved to kill us, right? There's still some animals that don't kill him. There's an animal that saves him. It doesn't even make sense at that point. But, he gets attacked by monkeys. You could get attacked by monkeys, whatever. He gets attacked by the monkeys. It's kind of entertaining. He's jumping around and running and things like that, but it's not great. He gets some slug on him, and so it makes him swell up and thinks he's gonna die. He has to inject himself with something. Good thing that's the only slug around, huh? Because the thing that he takes knocks him out. He's just knocked out on the grass. Luckily, there were no more around, and that there are no more in the rest of the movie, because he would have probably died if he ran out of that stuff to inject himself with. But he has that situation. He also, at night, the earth freezes over, so he has to go to certain places that are hot spots. It's like the earth freezes over. How is vegetation surviving? How are the animals? I guess they evolved to be able to do that, but you don't see anything that would indicate evolution for how they're able to survive in such a wildly changing climate. I mean, this is every day. It seems normal during the day, and at night it freezes over. So the hot spots is just a convenient way for Jaden to still be able to do this, even though the minute it turned nighttime, he would just die. Yeah, there's so much of this that it's not all that entertaining, and the minute you think about it at all, it's like, why? Like they have that big moment of the fallout between Will and Jaden, or Cypher and Katai, where they really get into it about the daughter and the things that happen. I'll get to that right after this point, but he's on that cliff and it looks so fake behind him, and it's such an ugly. This is an ugly looking movie. Whenever they're not just in the woods, but they get into it, and he jumps off the cliff and he's flying or gliding away from this bird. This bird gets him and just puts him in his nest. Then some tigers come in and attack, and he's fighting the tigers, or these weird looking tiger things. And the babies, the baby birds, they get killed. And then later on, he's gonna freeze to death, and the bird saves him and dies itself. So I guess the animals haven't evolved to be able to survive the changing climate at night, I guess. But why did it do that? Oh, there's so many questions here. I guess it sees him as its baby bird now or something. There's not much to that. So Zoe Kravitz plays Senshi Rage, who was the older sister of Katai. And when he was younger, I guess he looks like he may be single digits, he may be like 10 or something like that, but he was younger. They got attacked by an Ursa. It seemed like they were at home or something, I don't know. They get attacked, and the sister, Senshi, she puts him in, it looks like a bubble or a dome or something, but they keep saying box. He's like, oh, she told me to come out that box, or whatever. That was kind of throwing me off, because it doesn't look like a box. But she puts him in there, and he's basically watching her get killed. And so not only does he feel guilty about it, but also Cypher, Will Smith, he's kind of giving him a hard time about it. And I'm like, well, what was he supposed to do? Just die? And he literally says that. He's like, I would have died. What was I supposed to do? He's like, what do you think you should have done? It's like, why is this a character arc with this? It's clear that he wouldn't have been able to do anything. Like, maybe he has PTSD and that's why he's so scared in the field. But they don't do enough with that arc of him getting over that situation. There's just a dream sequence of his sister being like, it's okay. That's it. And he's reciting Moby Dick to her. That's the thing in this movie, that Moby Dick keeps coming up. She's talking to her dad about it. She has the book. She's like, oh, a book. I guess books don't exist anymore or something. She's talking to him about it while he's on a mission or whatever. They're on a call, and the boy gave it to her or something. And then Jaden has been reading it to try to get closer to him somehow. And so he starts reciting it whenever he's having that vision of his sister. I don't know why Moby Dick keeps coming up. It feels like a really lazy way of trying to make a connection between Jaden or Katai and Ursa and Captain Ahab and Whale, I guess. But that connection doesn't really work. Katai's not obsessed with killing the Ursa. The Ursa just happens to be in his way. Katai wouldn't even fight the Ursa if he didn't conveniently have to get to a higher level where the Ursa just happens to be at to send off the beacon when he finally gets it at the tail. So it doesn't work. I don't know why it keeps being forced in here. It just that should have been cut out of here. Oh, also, there's a kind of a time limit to this because Will Smith really needs medical attention, and Katai doesn't have enough. Jade doesn't have enough of those breathing things to make the air breathable. He's running out of them, so he has to really get to the tail and all that. So there's kind of a time limit to this. It doesn't make things more exciting or add more tension. Not really, not enough at least. But the Ursa's really smart. Like the Ursa's like setting traps for him. That's another thing that feels poorly thought out. Can the Ursa even see the world around it? How is it able to know that this is a dead body and to put it up on something? How would it know? If it can't see anything but fear. I don't think there's much fear in a dead body, but whatever. That's another thing that just doesn't feel like it was thought out enough. Yeah, he has to fight the Ursa, and the fight is okay. You're not really invested in him at all or this conflict. The Ursa doesn't look very good. The effects haven't looked all that great throughout pretty much the whole movie. The other animals do. He's finally able to ghost, and we actually see the cutlass, the sword thing, turn into something else when he kills it, which was kind of cool. And then we have that moment when they get rescued where they hug and things like that, which was touching, like I said. But that's about it. There's really not much to this movie. It's really just we gotta get Will Smith's boy out there. It's nepotism and nepotism alone. Jaden Smith's a bad actor. This world is poorly thought out, poorly developed, and doesn't make any sense the minute you start thinking about it at all. They're speaking sci-fi nonsense most of the time. Will Smith is the main one doing it because he has to be stuck on the ship doing that and telling it to Katai, and it was so boring. That's when it really gets boring. I had to keep backing up the movie to be like, wait, what did he say? And eventually, I'm just like, okay, I got the most of it. I guess I got the gist. I got to move on. I'll be here all day. It's so boring. It's so boring. The accents, the way the world looks, the effects. It doesn't work, man. But I will give it a little bit of, I don't know. I'll be somewhat kind to it and give it trash instead of giving my lowest rating, because Will Smith was good, even though I didn't like his character, and I did like certain moments with the father and son stuff, right? With a little bit more, and that arc could have been really satisfying. But anyway, that's After Earth. Giving it trash, and that's it. Another bad M. Night Shyamalan movie when he was already really not doing well at the time. So anyway, subscribe, and we're done.